Okay, we're live.
नमामि शारं सच्चिदानन्दरूपम् लासात्कुण्डालां गोकुले व्रजमानम् यशोदावियोलोका लादावमानम् परामेष्टमाद्यां ततदूतगोप्या रुदन्तमोहनेत्रा युग्मामृजान्तम् करं भोजयुग्मेन सतङ्कनेत्रम् मुहुसशकम्पा तिरेककण्ठ स्थिताग्रैवं दामो दरं भक्तिवादम् इति दृक्सालिलभे आनन्दकुन्दे साकाशं निमज्जन्तम् आज्ञापयन्तम् तदेशिता यशो भक्तेर्जितात्वम् पुनः प्रेमतास्तां सतप्रीति वन्दे नमामि शारदां सच्चिदानन्दरूपम् लासात्कुण्डालां गोकुले व्रजमानम् वरं देवमोक्षं न मोक्षावधिं वा नाचान्यमृणेहा वरिषादपीह इदं ते वपुरनाथ गोपालबालम् सदा मे मनसि राष्ट्रकिमान्या इदं ते मुखं भोजम् आद्यतनीलये प्रीतं कुण्डले स्निग्धा रक्तश्च काप्य मुहुश्चम्बितं बिम्बा रक्तधरां मे मनसा विराष्टा अलं लक्षलाभे नमो देवदामो दरानन्त विष्णु प्रासीद प्रभो दुःख जलाब्धिमाग्नम् गृहाणे कृपादृष्टवृष्टति दीनं बतानु गृहाणेश मामज्ञां यदि अक्षिदीश कुमुरात्मजो वद मोत्याभयात्मात् त्वयमुचितो भक्ति भाजकृतो च तथा प्रेम भक्ति सगमे प्रयाच नमोक्षे ग्रहो मेस्ति दामोदरेह नमामि शारं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं लासत्कुण्डालं गोकुले व्रजमानम् नमामि शारं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं लासत्कुण्डालं गोकुले व्रजमानम् नमस्तेऽस्तु दाम्ने स्फुरदीप्तिधाम्ने त्वदीयादराणि ईशस्य धाम्ने नमो राधिकाय तदीया प्रियाय नमो राधिकाय तदीया प्रियाय नमो अनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यं नमो राधिकाय तदीय प्रियाय नमो राधिकाय तदीय प्रियाय नमो अनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यं नमो अनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यं राधा दामोदर राधा दामोदर दामोदर जय राधे राधा दामोदर राधा दामोदर दामोदर जय राधे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल Happy Diwali to all. Gaur Pramanande. Happy Diwali to all, and also happy Anakut Mahotsav coming up in a couple of days as well. Dhanavad. Hare Krishna, Haribol. Thank you.
Dandavat Pranam, Haribol. Jai Shishi Guru Garanga Ganhavika Girihari. Radha Binod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om. Asto Tarastra Shishimat. Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om. Asto Tarastra Shishimat. Srila Bhakti Vedanta Bama Maharaj Goswami Ki Jai. Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om. Asto Tarastra Shishimat. Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Param Gurudev Nityalila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimat Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Jagat Guru Nityalila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimat Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Paramahamsa Mahabhagavat Srila Gaurikishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Baladevi Vibhushan Gaudiya Acharya Ki Jai. Jai Rasik Siromani Srila Vishnath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Treya Ki Jai. Jai Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhattadasa Raghunath Sat Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai. Jai Swarup Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parsada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sika Hol Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Antadvip Mayapur Simantadvip Gautramdvip Madhyadvip Koladvip Ritudvip Janadvip Motandvip Udvip Atmaka Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Padravan Bandiravan Belvan Lohavan Mahavan Madhuvan Talvan Bahulavan Kamudvan, Vrindavan, Kadyavan, Kamyavan, Brajamandal Ki Jai. Shishi Radha Krishna Gopa Gopiko Govardhan Vadasavad Matmika Shri Brajamandal Ki Jai. Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrinda Devi Maharani Ki Jai. Purnamasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. Gopishwa Mahadev Ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Ki Jai. Ketra Mandal Ki Jai. Sarva Vigna Vanasakari Shina Shingadev Bhagavan Ki Jai. Bhakta Prabha Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai. Charidam Ki Jai. Chari Sampradaya Ki Jai. Chari Acharya Ki Jai. Akara Matraj Shri Chaitanya Mat Ki Jai. Grantaraj Shrimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samagata Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari
Hari
Bo.
Bol. Om Gyan Timurandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Gora Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Vanaeti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Shrimad Bhaktivedanta Narayaneti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Shri Keshava Priyatmane Shri Shrimad Bhaktivedanta Vamaneti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Vancha Kalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Bol. Dandavat pranams to all of the listeners and to Sripad Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Maharaj and to Sripad Bhaktivedanta Vaikanas Maharaj. We're very fortunate that today is our 14th day, and with relatively little hiccups, we are proceeding nicely. Today is one of our second rest day, and we will be covering the second verse of Sri Damodarastakam, and I will hand over to Sripad Trinandi Maharaj to begin.
Dandavat Tarunji. Thank you. Thank you. Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tidalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyadatme Shishimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Iti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shiva Prabhupada. Jai, all our Rupanuga Guru Varg, and all the Vaishnav and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. Vanshakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhuvevacha, Patitanam Pavanibhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. So here in India today, many are celebrating Diwali, the festival of lamps. And we will also be offering lamps at Manasa Ganga for the next 2 or 3 days. We had a description a couple of days ago by Bhaktivedanta Vaikanas Maharaj was describing how we would regularly go to Manasa Ganga with our lamps and offer in the evening time. Very magical time. Thousands of people coming, thousands of lamps all around Manasa Ganga, lit up very beautifully. In remembrance of Ram coming back to Ayodhya, in remembrance of the auspiciousness of this month of glorification of all these holy places that we're going to. So many glorifications contained within the Deepavali festival. We will also be celebrating tomorrow in our Gaudiya Math more fully this Deepavali. So the other day we discussed the first verse of this Damodarastakam. And we were describing how the first line sets the Mangalacharyan for the whole rest of this palace of Ras that's about to be presented. Such a current of sweetness is emanating from the heart of Satyabrat Muni in urgency to have darshan of his Balagopal. It's this urgency that we can reflect on going from verse to verse to verse to verse. It carries us across practically quantum stages of consciousness going through each of these verses. They each carry particular prominence. So in the first verse, we set the stage with the Mangalacharyan, and then straight away, it's describing in the second line Krishna's earrings swinging against his cheeks very beautifully. And we go into the Leela of in the second two lines of the first verse. Straight away, Satyabrat Muni dives into the Leela of this Dambanda Leela. It's so exceptional. Never before in the history of Krishna's avatars has Krishna been bound around the belly. And he's only bound specifically by praying. It's only the extent and depth of the praying that will control him. And we understand this controlling by love mood is most exemplified in the gopis. Their love is called Samartha Rati. Samartha Rati principally means having the power to control Krishna by their love. Krishna is the supreme controller. And yet he allows himself to be controlled fully by the love of the residents of the Brijbasis, especially the gopis, and especially in this Leela, which comes out so prominently of this Vatsalya praying residing in the heart of Mother Yashoda. It's more powerful than Krishna's affection for her, for him. Krishna's affection for Yashoda Ma is less than Yashoda Ma's affection for Krishna. So this is a very deep consideration. And by this affection, she's able to bind him, actually bind him. So now we move into the second verse. The second verse contains what we call mantra mayi. This is the meditation on a single pastime. The third verse, when we get to the third verse on the next day, this is called Swarasiki Upasana. This is many, many pastimes. Actually, in the commentary on the third verse, Srila Gurudev describes 12 different pastimes. This is described in the sadhak's meditation. If he's meditating on this mantra mayi, this mood of a single pastime, this is very, very powerful. But even more powerful than that are many pastimes tumbling through the consciousness simultaneously. So, but in this second verse we've reached today, it's very thick in the single Leela of this Dambanda Leela. It's describing specifically how Krishna has been caught now. So I'm just going to chant the mantra again, and then we'll read. Mostly I'm going to be reading from Srila Sanatana Goswami's commentary, because it's completely on track, so to speak. Because there's so much in this Damodarastakam. And if we take the words of the acharyas line by line, we're going to be able to squeeze the maximum out, the maximum juice out of this astakam. And if we've heard it before, when we hear it again and again and again, every year we'll hear it. But every year, as we've progressed during the year, our ability and attention to hear will have increased also. So we will be hearing the same topics, but with a greater depth and a greater appreciation. So it's never repetitive. It's never hackneyed. It's never just like on again and again. This pastime is so extraordinary, and it gets more extraordinary each successive year. So verse 2, Rudantam muhur netra yugmram rijantam, karamboja yugmena satanka netra, muhuswasa kampa, trirehanka kanta, stita graiva damodaram bhakti badam. And the translation, seeing the stick in his mother's hand. Now we come right thick into the Leela, as I said. This is mantra mayi. We're meditating on the single pastime of Krishna being captured by his mother, which began in the first verse. But now it's being opened out in the second verse to show its extraordinary nature, that Krishna, who is the Supreme Lord, can be captured simply by love. And it's saying in the first verse also, remember, that Mother Yashoda was able to run faster than Krishna to catch him. So the sadhak takes attention to this, that we must run quicker to Krishna if we want to actually capture him. Our love must be inspired towards him more than he is inspired towards us. It seems extraordinary in the conditioned state that the sadhak can even consider this when he's blundering around in this material conditioned state of consciousness. How can we imagine that we can actually engender more praying for Krishna than he has for us? But when we meditate on Krishna regularly and by the power of the Maha Mantra, which has the power to actually reveal all of these truths in the heart, it's mystical, it's magical, it's beyond comprehension of the mind, it's achintya, it's beyond the material senses. Chintya means bound by the material senses. Achintya is beyond the material senses. So this is the condition of the sadhak in his appreciation of these truths. So seeing the stick in his mother's hand and fearful of being beaten, he is weeping incessantly and rubbing his eyes again and again with his two lotus-like hands. And it's described in the commentary that he's rubbing his eyes either in honesty to clear them of the tears that are pouring in fear from Mother Yashoda. Now, this is extraordinary, how the Supreme Lord is the personification of fear himself. There's a very beautiful verse that we hear. Karmani anihasya bhavo bhavasyate durgashraya tari bayat pralayanam kalat mano yat pramod yuteshram swatmanyarate kidyata dira vidam iha. This verse is spoken by Uddhav in the 3rd canto, in the 4th chapter, 16th verse. And Uddhav is conveying to Vidura the extraordinary nature of the inconceivable nature of Krishna. Karmani anihasya bhavo bhavasyate. He works and he doesn't work. He's born and he's unborn. He's fearless, yet he runs and hides in a fortress in the ocean. He's the personification of renunciation, yet he lives with 16,000 queens. How to reconcile these utter contradictions? Uddhav is saying this bewilders those pundits, those saintly persons. They become dhiravidam, they become confused by these contradictions. We spoke before about Queen Kunti. She is also confused because unless you have captured the essence of the distinction between Aishwarya and Madhurya, and we've discussed this now on 3 different occasions on our Zoom classes. We discussed in Belva, and I discussed a little bit the other day with the first verse presentation. And now in this verse again, we have to again appreciate this exceptional dynamic of the distinction between Aishwarya and Madhurya. They just don't meet, so to speak. Because ultimately the Madhurya has far more Aishwarya there than the Aishwarya Bhav itself. You remember I described the example of a spoonful of water, a spoonful of salt in a glass of water mixed up. Tastes very salty. So this is like the Aishwarya in Dwarka, because the water represents the sweetness, but it's only limited to a glassful. But the extent of the sweetness in Braj is compared to the river Ganga. And if you throw 20 kilos of salt into the Ganga, what difference does it make at all? Nevertheless, there is still so much more Aishwarya there. So this is so extraordinary a Leela that Krishna should be rubbing his eyes again and again in fear of Mother Yashoda looking at the stick. And he's rubbing his eyes either to clear his vision from real tears, or he's rubbing his eyes to make the tears come more forcefully in order to let Mother Yashoda know his absolute intimidation about the situation, his fear. And he's thinking very cleverly. We should understand this. I mean, you might have experienced this in your life, like Vaikanas Maharaj was sharing us a dream when he blew up the whole world, and he had the feeling of, something had happened there. But the same feeling I can remember loudly yelling when my father came to beat me one time with a stick, thinking that if I shouted in pain sufficiently loudly before he even touched me, that he would not hit me so hard. And it worked. He didn't beat me so hard because he thought I was weeping so much at the beginning. So Krishna has the same clever, wonderful mentality. Krishna is so brilliant, and the sweetness of his relationship with Mother Yashoda just takes us into another world of this appreciation of Vatsalya Bhav. I can remember when Srila Gurudev first put out his 3 publications. There was the Bhakti Rasayan, Going Beyond Vaikuntha, and Govinda Lila. These 3 publications that he put out first in English. And in the Bhakti Rasayan publication, it was loaded with these descriptions of Mother Yashoda's praying for Krishna. I can remember personally being completely awestruck by those moods of Vatsalya Prem. I had never appreciated it before. So this is the first introduction to what is the depth of the Prem of Braj. We can appreciate Dasya Bhav, we can appreciate Sakya Bhav, but Vatsalya Bhav is so deep. And this is what we're experiencing in this Dambanda Lila. It really springs forth this speciality of Vatsalya Prem. It has the potency, the capacity to control Krishna, not only control him, but ultimately to bind him. So it's saying his eyes are extremely restless, filled with fear. He takes heavy breaths again and again that cause the pearls and other ornaments around his neck, which are marked by 3 graceful, curving lines, to tremble. His neck is like a conch shell, so beautiful. 3 graceful lines, and they're trembling, genuinely in fear. Never think this is a dramatic performance by Krishna. Krishna is utterly immersed. Otherwise, how could he taste the extremity of this Vatsalya Prem? How would it be possible for him? These bhavs are residing in the core of the heart, in absolute reality. So in order to access that place, they've got to be utterly, it's not a dramatic performance in any way. It's like sometimes we see the imitation, is the Sahajya people, etc. And we look at them and we feel what you're actually missing by showing this facade of dramatic affection or attraction, rolling the dust, when actually we remember the story of Haridas Thakur when he was listening to the snake charmer play the flute, and he began to go into ecstasy, and everyone was stunned by the true ecstasy that he was experiencing. And then an imitationist saw the praise that Haridas Thakur received and tried to imitate that, and the snake charmer immediately beat him with his stick. And all the onlookers, they immediately beat him also. They could tell this is just a performance he's doing. But what a tragedy that that person would be denying himself the reality of the heart's praying, this sincere truthfulness of the heart. So Krishna is in that condition now. O Damodar, you have been bound by your mother's Vatsalya Bhakti. I offered obeisances to that Damodar. Now, Srila Sanatana Goswami begins his commentary. And I've described the part about rubbing his eyes already. He's rubbing his eyes to either bring tears or to actually literally clear the tears that are coming. But in any state, it's to let Mother Yashoda know that he is really afraid, and he's looking at the stick. And when Mother Yashoda sees this, she immediately drops her stick. She's not looking to traumatize her son. Mother Yashoda is filled to the brim, overflowing with this Vatsalya Prem. She is the mother of all mothers combined. All motherly love, it reposes within Yashoda Ma. She wishes nothing except for the success of her son. Vaikanas Maharaj the other day was describing this distinction between Ativyapti, which is the overextension of the description of love, and Avyapti, which is the underextension. This Avyapti is what Mother Yashoda is demonstrating. She went to pacify the milk. Krishna didn't want her to do that. It would seem Krishna became very unhappy with that act. It would seem that Krishna, how can this be bhakti? Because it's not pleasing to Krishna. Yet this is filled with praying, because Mother Yashoda's intention was only to please Krishna. Whereas the other consideration of Ativyapti, the Chanura and Mustika wrestlers, their intention was to kill Krishna. So where was their bhakti? So we should appreciate this distinction between these two descriptions of what is pure bhakti in this verse, Anyabilasita Sunyam, which we discussed in the first verse. So now it's being quoted, the chapter 9 of the 10th canto, where this Dambanda Lila is opened out and described. And it's saying, just as an ordinary mother in this world may bound her mischievous son, so Mother Yashoda, simply considering Sri Krishna to be her son, tied him to the grinding mortar with a rope, as if he were an ordinary child. Mother Yashoda has already seen within the lotus-like mouth of her darling son the entire cosmic creation. She's seen it, and she's even seen herself there also within the abdomen of Krishna. But then she just thought that, oh, this must be some ghost that has inhabited my son. She couldn't think that her son was that Ishvara, that Paramatma, that Supreme Lord. She couldn't think that for a minute because of the extent of her praying. If her praying had been any less, she would have been awestruck, just like Devaki and Vasudeva. When Krishna appears in the dungeon in Mathura, they were so awestruck because Krishna manifests in Mathura. He manifests as a 16-year-old boy, filled with all his opulent jewels and his crown, etc. And Devaki and Vasudeva are awestruck by the magnificence of this manifestation. And then, because of the prayers of Devaki and the fear of Kamsa, she prays for him to become a small child. But even in the body of a small child, they are still thinking he is that Supreme Personality of God. There's so much distinction in their vision. So we are hoping to develop this very intimate connection with the Supreme Lord, especially by going through this Damodarastakam regularly. Every night when we offer a lamp, every night when we sing this Astakam, and we're looking either at a photograph picture or we're remembering the pastime, then we pray that my appreciation and depth of the praying of Mother Yashoda for Krishna, in even desiring to bind him, it's for his own benefit. She thinks, how else can I stop my son from performing all this mischief? How else am I going to do that? I have to chastise my son. If I allow him this liberty of just doing whatever he wants, he's just done such a naughty thing. It's unbelievable. We said the other day, he's just broken that whole pot of yogurt, that whole grinding churning pot of yogurt that Mother Yashoda was churning. Mother Yashoda, I explained last time, she took so much endeavor to actually get the milk, to boil the milk, to put it in the pot, to begin churning. So much endeavor was there, and Krishna just in a moment just let all the contents fall on the floor. This was extremely mischievous of Krishna. But what did Mother Yashoda do when she saw this? She smiled. She smiled at the mischievous nature of her son. She practically was admiring, in one sense, how wonderfully mischievous is my son. She didn't become emotionally disturbed because she wasn't emotionally attached to the yogurt. They have millions of cows. They have billions of gallons of milk. There was no loss there at all. Nevertheless, Krishna must be punished for his misbehavior. And then it's described in the Bhagavatam. I'm just going to read some translations of the verse that are given here in verse 2 by Sanatana Goswami. He describes when Mother Yashoda tried to bind her mischievous child, the rope was 2 fingers too short, so she added another rope to it. So Mother Yashoda has already bound one end of the rope to the grinding mortar, because she considered the grinding mortar, which Krishna stood on to raid the contents of another pot of butter that was hanging from the ceiling, should also be punished. So she bound one end of the rope to that ulukam, and then the other end she was beginning to bind Krishna's waist. However, that also was 2 fingers short. In this way, each and every time she tied on another rope, it was always 2 fingers too short. I can remember hearing my Gurudev speak on this part of the pastime, and he was describing that they brought ropes from all the houses around. All the laborers brought all their ropes. Dozens and dozens and dozens of ropes were brought. Somehow or other, I asked Gurudev the question, which he didn't answer, probably a stupid question, but I asked him, what happened to all the ropes? Because I was thinking, tying all these ropes together, there must have been like a great stack of ropes there. And I asked him what happened, and he just waved me aside, like, as if it was a material type of consideration question. I guess it was, it was. Anyway, coming from a Western background, I thought that analytically, what happened to all the ropes? Gurudev didn't answer. Although she had tied together all the ropes in her home and the other homes, Mother Yashoda could not bind Krishna. Seeing this, the gopis started giggling. Utterly perplexed, she also began to laugh. Now, this is a key. If this is happening by conditioned souls who have some sort of attachment to material wealth or material reputation in any way, if Mother Yashoda wanted to demonstrate her superiority to her son, she wasn't demonstrating her superiority. She was demonstrating her immense affection for her son. She wasn't trying to control him in a superior type of a way. She was only trying to control him with absolute affection and love. Only love. Krishna will only reciprocate with this type of purity. So this type of purity is just flowing from Mother Yashoda. And then it's described, she became exhausted by tying so many ropes together, and her body became covered with perspiration. Srila Gurudev describes this pastime went on for many hours. This wasn't just in the blink of an eye. This wasn't just 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. This went on for many hours. The gopis were running to their homes, bringing ropes, soft ropes, to bind, because the gopis, of course, they love Krishna as much as Mother Yashoda. Not as much, but they love him with all their hearts. And they wouldn't want any harsh type of rope to go around his beautiful belly. So they ran and brought soft ropes to try to circulate. His belly is described as only 12 inches. How inconceivable is this? How astonishing is this? Mother Yashoda, she becomes bewildered, not only by the fact that she can't bind it, but by every single time it's exactly the same distance too short. Exactly these 2 fingers. So the acharyas have analyzed these 2 fingers and described them as chesta and kripa. This is very, very important for the sadhaks to appreciate. Chesta and kripa. Chesta means effort. The sadhak has to make the effort, and Krishna will supply the ingredients of the mercy. And this is going to be described in the second part, Gurudev's commentary, which Sripad Bhakti-Vaidhyanatha Maharaj will actually speak about. There's 10 Kal and Veda Kalai. These 2 different philosophies, the Ramanujas and the, who are the others? The Tamil scriptures and the Vedic scriptures describe these 2 ways of connecting, either the kitten philosophy or the monkey philosophy. We described this the other day, but this is described in this verse 2. We should take notes, I think, on this dramatic, wonderful book that Gurudev has given us, this Damodarastakam book, so that we can remember where these descriptions are clearly described for future. Every single year for the rest of our lives, Prabhus, we're going to be going through this Damodarastakam every single year. Don't just take it that this is just one time I'm going to hear it, bring it in one ear and out the other, but try to retain these truths. And it helps when we write things down. It gets a double impression. Hearing is one impression, reading is another impression, and writing is another impression. And then it'll make some sanskar, it'll make some impression in the heart if we write it down. So in the second verse, I'm just going to read a little bit of Srila Gurudev's commentary here, and Pujapad Sripad Vaikanas Maharaj will carry the rest of this commentary of Srila Gurudev through. But there's a beautiful conversation. Even though this is going on, Krishna and Mother Yashoda are in this intense, it's very intense for Mother Yashoda. She's trying to bind the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is completely present in his fullness here. All the potencies, all the personalities in existence have come around to actually witness this extraordinary pastime. It's never happened before. The air is filled with excitement and tension and gravity simultaneously. It's a very, very powerful moment. And in this powerful moment, Mother Yashoda is speaking to Krishna. She's saying, "You monkey friend," she explained. "Chor, thief. You're a thief, Krishna." And Krishna, so composed, even though he's terrified of his mother, doesn't want to be bound, is completely intensely moving internally. He says, to this, Sri Krishna replied, "Mother, there are no chores in my dynasty. There is only a chore in your dynasty," he says. He retorts to her. He's so cheeky. He says to his mother, "There's no thieves in my dynasty. It's only in your dynasty, mother." "Oh, really?" she retorted. "If you did not steal the butter, then who was feeding the monkeys?" Kanai replied, "He who made the monkeys was feeding them." He answers back in a mood of sarvagyan, being that Supreme Personality. Mother Yashoda can't comprehend this. He knows that. So, but he answers like that because it's the truth. He made the monkeys and he's the one who's feeding the monkeys. And then Mother Yashoda says, "Oh, is that so? Tell me frankly, who broke the pot? Who broke this pot?" And then Krishna replies, "Look, mother, when you ran to save the milk, your large ankle bells hit the pot and it broke." How cheeky is Krishna? I mean, this conversation is going on while Mother Yashoda is trying to bind him. And then she says, "Then how did you get butter all over your face?" she asked. "Mother, the monkeys were eating the butter, so I was trying to scare them away." I mean, just the lies just flow out of his mouth. "As they were running, they smeared butter all over my mouth." He's saying this to his mother. Hearing this exchange, the gopis began to laugh. Then Mother Yashoda says in a more grave tone, "I am not about to set you free so easily," Mother Yashoda said. "I am going to tie you up." So her determination, this utsaha we have in the third verse of the Upadeshamrita, this utsaha, nishchayat daryat, this utsaha is a necessity to come in the devotee's heart, this enthusiasm. How to engender this enthusiasm in our lives if we're sitting in the polluted mental Western world? It's not so easy, but it is easy simultaneously because more mercy will come to us if we're in a polluted atmosphere, if we take shelter of Krishna at that time. Katanchana smritya yasmin duskaram sukaram bhavet vishmrita viparyam syat Sri Chaitanyam namamyatam. That Krishna is saying that if you remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in any circumstances, everything that is difficult will become very easy. And something that is easy to perform will become difficult if we don't remember Krishna. So in this polluted environment of this material world, if we take shelter of Sri Nam, if we take shelter of Harinam, we take shelter of Harigata, we take shelter of these granthas that our divine Guru Varga have benedicted us with, then we will become fearless, abhay, and we will easily enter consciously into these pastimes with great relish. But we have to enthusiastically embrace this path as a sadhak. So then Mother Yashoda she binds ultimately her mischievous son. Krishna capitulates. He had an agenda today. He wanted to steal some more butter and he wanted to play with his friends. He did not want to be bound. So Krishna's Aishwarya potency manifests and allows his desire to be there, that he won't be bound. But then when he sees with compassion the exhaustion, the effort, this chesta of his greatest devotee, Yashodama, her greatest effort, then he capitulates. And it's in that Karuna Shakti, which is not present in the spiritual world. There's no reason to demonstrate this Karuna Mayi, this mood of compassion in the spiritual world. Who are you going to be compassionate to? Everyone is in loving service to Krishna. Everyone is very, very satisfied. But only in this material world is everyone suffering deeply. So this Karuna Mayi can flourish in this world. One of the reasons Krishna's actually advents is to relish this compassion mood, because in the spiritual realm, there's no need for compassion. It's only in this world that there's compassion. So when he sees Mother Yashoda, this Karunamayi, this mood of compassion, his heart melts. And then Krishna himself allows his mother to bind his. Krishna is always independent. He's that supreme independent Lord in any condition. Even if he's mugdata, even if he's forgotten his ishvarata, ishvaravata, his godly nature, even if he's forgotten that, he's still independent. It's like the fire in all circumstances is independent to the heat in all circumstances, or the light. So Krishna is always independent. So then with his independence, it is touched by this compassion mood towards his mother. So I'll stop here, but this is the sum and substance of this second verse, principally, is describing one Leela, this mantra Mai, and tomorrow, or next time we discuss, we will go into this Swarasiki Upasana. Try to remember these two words because they're very significant. And finally, I just want to conclude on one beautiful verse from the Adi Leela, chapter 4, which exemplifies the distinction between this Aishwarya and Madhurya, because this truth has to really become prominent as we're trying to appreciate this Damodarastakam. In verse 17 of the 4th chapter of Adi Leela, it's saying, Aishwarya Janate Sabha Jagat Mishrita, Aishwarya Stila Prem Nahya Mora Prita. All the universe is filled with knowledge of my majesty, but love, weakened by that sense of majesty, doesn't control me. It doesn't control me. If one regards me as the Supreme Lord and himself as a subordinate, I do not become subservient to his love, nor can it control me. So these two very significant verses in the Adi Leela chapter 4, when we remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all these things become much easier to, we want to experience these truths, not just have gyan. We want to have realization to some degree, to our capacity, to our adhikar of these truths, to have a taste, a genuine taste, so that genuine ruchi will rise in our hearts. So to enter these with great sincerity. Verse 2, Ki Jai. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubevacha, Patitanam Pavnebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. I unfortunately don't have the capacity to be as effusive as Yashodhari, but it's so great to hear about Damodarastakam and go deeper into it. And I was thinking, as you were speaking, I was thinking like of all the bhajans and kirtans that we sing, like in our lives, this one must be one of the ones that we sing the most, if not one of the most, if not the most. So yeah, I was really resonating with that point that you made. that we should really study this book deeply, because every year we're going to sing this Damodarastakam. Thank you so much, Maharaj. And without further ado, I will hand over to Sripad Vaikanas Maharaj to read the Srila Gurudev commentary.
Okay. Ajnanatimirandasya Dhyananjana Shalakaya Chakshulamanitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Rapayano Virahaka Tada Ajuhava Putriti Tan Mayataya Tadavo Binedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Munimanatusmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Abhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshay Kiptascha Kamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitram Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanada Vindam Tavevasmi Najivami Tvayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So we always begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padmanitya Bhavishta, Om Vishnupad Asta Tarsat Sri Srimad Abhayacharnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. And the same heartfelt obeisance unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nitya Leela Bhavishta Om Vishnupad Asta Tarsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj under our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga and all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So, listening, of course, to Sripad Tridani Maharaj speak, so many little memories come, little points come up. So before we get too much into the purport, he has brought up more than once the idea of how our realizations, our understanding will gradually increase as we continue to perform bhakti, as we hear, as we associate with high-class devotees. And he was recounting a story where he had asked Srila Gurudev a question, and Gurudev just waved him off, right? Shamarani used to always ask Gurudev these same kind of questions. Oh, Gurudev, like what happens when the cows eat the grass, then they give the milk and you make it into a sweet and then they eat, what is the transformation of consciousness in the spiritual world? It's completely unlike everything here, and it is generally achintya, because we can only conceive how things happen mechanistically in this world, in the arrangement of dead matter being transformed by the interaction and influence of consciousness, right? Just inconceivable. But I was remembering how I was speaking with Gurudev one time, and I asked him a question as well. I was asking him about the progression of Harinam, how we go from the stage of Namaparad, evolve into Namabhas, and then when Shuddhanam first appears. And really that's what we're trying to understand here also, that Satyavat Muni is showing this step by step how his own realization is growing and broadening, right? So Gurudev explained this in a very nice way, step by step. I don't have time to get into the detail, but at the end, he talked about how then when we become cleansed by Namabhas, one Shuddhanam may appear. And by the strong influence of that Shuddhanam, then gradually another. And then gradually Namabhas becomes taken over by Shuddhanam. More and more Shuddhanam, less and less Namabhas. And I said, but Gurudev, I read in the Jaiva Dharma, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, that upon the first Shuddhanam, all material attachment vanishes, it's destroyed. And by the second Shuddhanam, Krishna Prem comes. And I sort of said, how do I reconcile? You described it in a little different way, it seemed to me. And Gurudev, I'm sure just like he did with Sri Damodarastakam, he just sort of looked at me. And this is going to come up, if we have time later in this purport, about how in the spiritual world, conversations and meaning are conveyed not just by words, but by gestures, by glance. Anyone who ever attended Gurudev's lectures realizes that so much of what he conveyed to us was also done by gesture and glance. You don't get that when you read the book, because the books have been carefully curated in a way that they sometimes add what Gurudev meant by a gesture, by a glance. And so when he looked at me, when I asked him that question, he just looked at me and he went, raised his head a little bit, looked at me and went, Sri Damodarastakam has probably seen that gesture so many times, right? Right. And what he conveyed by that was, all right, this is, and it took me a while to understand it, but you just don't understand what I'm saying yet. You can't reconcile. Gurudev many times told me that realization means to be able to reconcile things that are apparently contradictory, right? Apparently different in meaning, but in the absolute, it's all inclusive, right? So just like we understand that even though sweetness pervades and dominates in the spiritual world, Aishvarya is there to an extent that we cannot imagine, right? And in this pastime, what we're going to hear is how Krishna's Aishvarya Shakti actually is controlling the pastime in the beginning. He doesn't want to be bound, right? So his internal desire is not to be bound. And so his Aishvarya Shakti creates this situation where the rope, no matter how much silken rope and ribbon they add, it's always too short. How many times have you thought about that and tried to imagine it and just come up completely short? Just like the question Chaitanya asked, what happened to all the rope? Were there piles and piles of rope? We cannot imagine what it looked like. It's bewildering. The mind comes up short, right? So much in detail is given step by step in all these purports, because Gurudev is expounding based on the commentaries of chiefly Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He takes those, and Sanatana Goswami, and takes those and shares it with us in a way that makes it more accessible. There's another little book. I don't know if you've ever seen or read this. It's been out forever. It's called The Butter Thief. And we reprinted this in Bangalore because we needed some inexpensive small books back in the early 2000s. And since then, it's been reprinted and reprinted. But in this little book, the essential conceptions that are explained and expounded upon in a big book, like this is much bigger book, are there in a very sweet and condensed way. So anyone who would like to, you can read this book in a day very easily and capture so much of what's being said. And in fact, we put these little, how like you go to a bookstore and they have these little blurbs to get you to try to read the book. So we did this there, and it says, this small book, The Butter Thief, is a summary study of one of the most remarkable and illuminating pastimes of Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, yeah? Learn how one mother, through her love, achieved something that even the greatest mystics and yogis could not. Right? What? Wow, that's interesting. By what power does the Supreme Lord forget his own supremacy and act like an ordinary human being? And what is the secret by which the supreme controller of all the universes becomes bound and helpless like a small child? And we did this so that our devotees on the streets could immediately give this book to people and say, hey, and you speak these 4 points, and then it's all in this little book. Take it with you. And we distributed lots of them. We printed about 10,000 of them and distributed them in a very short time. So, yeah, the butter thief. Get it, read it. Very nice summary. Okay. So, Chaitanya Maharaj left off in his explanation with Gurudev's purport with the idea of the 2 conceptions of how we achieve the mercy of the Lord. Oh yeah, one more point I want to make before I go on. We're studying this conceptually from a very philosophical, tattvic point of view, right? Gurudev is very expertly weaving in the tattva of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, but also introducing the highest way in which the greatest devotees relate and associate with Krishna, apparently devoid of gyan, of his supremacy as the Lord, but also witnessing his Aishvarya, his incredible qualities, but all of those always submerged under the idea that he's my son, he's my friend, right? And Gurudev one time, probably more than once, came and said in the West, your Swami Maharaj, your Srila Prabhupada, he came to teach you that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I have come to help you forget that. Now, that can be greatly misunderstood. What? He's preaching against Srila Prabhupada, forgetting that Krishna is God. It's not what he meant. He meant that ultimately, if you go to Vrindavan, you will forget that. But there's a proper path. And no one presented the philosophical considerations of Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and others more than our Srila Gurudev, but he always pointed us to the ultimate prayojan. So the idea is that the foundation is the Sambandha Tattva, right? Knowledge of Krishna. This is what Chit, the Sandini, Samvit, and Ananda. The Samvit means to know who is God, what is our relationship, and in the higher sense, what is Ras, what is, the ingredients of Ras, how we interact in so many ways. But before we get to that point, we have to know about this material energy, how we've become conditioned, what are anartas, what are the obstacles, so that when we read the beautiful Krishna Lila, we don't impose our mundane material conceptions on that. We don't impose our mundane material conceptions on the personality of Guru, so that in our study, we become prakrita sahajas. We try to taste and enjoy, but only with the material conception, right? So all these finer points are being delivered so that we can ultimately taste that. And so we're getting the sweetness of this lila, but also the philosophy. Both are there. Don't try. I remember one time when I was in Alachua, I give a little class and there were devotees there. And one new devotee said, oh, how can I meditate on Krishna Lila? And I said, you should read Krishna book. Because their Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada presents so nicely in this same way. He weaves the narrative of the stories with the purports, right? So it all flows very nicely, explains it step by step. And then one devotee who is a disciple of Srila Gurudev from very early time, a very smart lady, kind of unique person. She said, but Maharaj, I don't do that at all. I only meditate on Ashtakalya Leela, And that means not even the Naimiktic Leela of Krishna Leela in this world, right? She'd say, I don't even read about demons. I just read about Krishna's pastimes with his eternal associates, and the Nitya Leela. And it was not the time or place to get into a big argument, with her at all. And I just said, well, I'm not at that point yet. I don't have that eligibility. And the fact is that even then, what we call Naimiktic Leela, right? Krishna killing demons, Krishna being in separation, all these different things. This is equally relishable by eternally liberated souls as well, because the whole Gopal Champu are Snigdhakant and Madhukant narrating so much Naimiktic Leela. This pastime is Naimiktic Leela because Krishna is a little baby in this pastime. So it doesn't exist in Goloka Vrindavan, but it exists as a memory. Oh, when Krishna did this. And in the spiritual world, there is no separation of time, past, present, and future. It's inconceivable. But when they hear this pastime narrated, it's as if they are there and experiencing it. But this very important pastime, which is meant for us to understand and grow and develop great simultaneous attraction for the special love of Mother Jashoda, but also the mystic potency of Sri Krishna by which these pastimes are enacted. So, just to repeat very quickly, Gurudev begins the next part about this distinction in the Ramanuja Sampradaya about two conceptions of how we achieve our spiritual destination. And one is, they're both Ramanujas, but one is in Tamil and one is in Karnataka, Kerala, Maharashtra. Ramanuja Sampradaya is very prevalent. And one is Vadakalai and Tenkalai. Tenkalai means those in Tamil, the Tamil scriptures. And they say that it's based on your efforts, right? And so that oh no, I'm sorry, I get it mixed up. The Tenkalai, the Ramanujas, the Tamils, it's only by the causeless grace of the Lord. That's the only thing that causes us to get this result. And the Vadakalais are saying, no, it's based on your effort. And in the Bible, that same kind of argument is there, by works or by grace, right? But actually, this pastime is weaving those two conceptions together in a very subtle way, wherein we understand that, yes, ultimately, Mother Jashoda achieved what she wanted to achieve by the grace of the Lord, but the grace of the Lord was established or won over by her expressions of love, by her unceasing efforts. Now, she's already a perfected soul, and yet she's enduring and undergoing so much effort that her effort overcomes the personal desire of the Lord himself. He did not want to be bound. And that's why the Aishwarya Shakti made the rope longer and longer. But her love was so strong, and it was manifested through effort, was shown through her efforts, unceasing. I'm not going to stop. And her prayers to Lord Narayan, what do I do? If I don't bind him, then who knows what will happen, right? He'll continue to be a liar, a thief. He may run away. I have to do this. Please help me, help me, help me, right? So this is how it works. And all through the Bhagavatam, we see this combining. But here, when we see the Pandavas and their activities in the first canto, some of that is described. And then later with Markandeya Rishi, right? He's being tossed around by the waves of the devastation, ultimately getting the mercy and getting the mercy of Surabhi at Navadvip. So many examples of effort and prayer, and finally resolution in acceptance and bestowal of a remarkable form of prema. And the gopis themselves, so much effort they're making to get Krishna's mercy. The whole Gopi Geet is all about that. Their separation is so powerful. Their yearning, their prayers are so strong. Krishna becomes pulled by those, captivated and submissive to that. So Gurudev gives another example of how to reconcile these two ideas. He says someone falls into a well, right? And they're crying out, help me, I've fallen into this well. And a man may come along and hear him and says, oh, all right, I'm going to throw down a rope and grab the rope and I'll pull you out, right? But if the person says, oh, I can't, I'm too weak, pull me out, help me. I'm helping you. I'm giving you the rope. Just hold on to it, tie it around your waist. I'll pull you up. Oh, but I can't. If he doesn't take his part of the bargain of the activity, then he won't get rescued. There's a story that the Christians tell, which is quite appropriate. There's a great flood happening, right? And this person this pastor, he's apparently a very religious person, and as the flood's coming, he's praying to the Lord, oh Lord, please save me, please save me. And a police car comes and says, hey, the flood's coming, get in the car, we'll get you out of here. No, the Lord will save me. And then, all right, and they drive away. And then the water's rising more and more, right? And he's got to go up into a higher level in his house. And then a boat comes. Hey, get into the boat, we'll get you away. And he goes, no, the Lord will save me. I am a devotee of the Lord. Right? And then finally, the flood waters are so high that he's on his roof. And, oh, Lord, save me, Lord, save me. A helicopter comes and says, here's a rope. Hold on to the rope. We'll pull you out of here. No, the Lord, he himself will save me. Anyway, what happens is the floodwaters finally wash away the house, wash away the pastor. He drowns. And then he goes to the heavenly gates, right? And he says, hey, why am I here? He calls to God and he says, I prayed to you. You said you'd always protect me. Well, I sent you a police car. You didn't take that. I sent you a boat. You didn't take that. I sent you a helicopter. You wouldn't take that. So what am I supposed to do? And so it's the same way with our sadhana. Gurudev so many times have been asked, oh, please give me your mercy. I'm so fallen. And this is how I think, I just want Gurudev to come and touch me on the head with a conch shell or touch me in the heart, and then all my anarthas will be washed away and I become a pure devotee, right? Like we read in the pastimes of Mahaprabhu, sometimes he was so extraordinarily merciful that even unqualified people were given the mercy of his glance, right? Given by his glance, by his words, by his touch, by his well wishes. He purified the entire world, even the entire universe. Oh, why could I have not been born at that time? And sometimes I thought, gee, Mahaprabhu is so merciful, but you don't take birth in Mahaprabhu's pastimes just being unqualified. Certainly there must have been unqualified people that got the mercy, but many of those people had also done austerities, penances, some kind of bhakti for many lifetimes to get born into that situation, right? Of course he's Patit Pavan, right? He is the deliverer of the most fallen, right? But also when that opportunity and that means of deliverance, it's given to us in the form of the instruction of Guru, in the form of the person, the example of Guru, right? Grab that rope. And Gurudev would say, I've given you my mercy. I've given you my instructions. Take those instructions. Mother Jashoda, she could easily have given up. Her friends, the gopis, clapping, oh, mother, the Creator has, you can see on his forehead, he's not meant to be bound, right? And she's ashamed. Oh, this is so embarrassing. I've not been able to bind this child. But does she give up? No. No, she does not give up. So how many times in your own service, in a daily way, this is one of the advantages of living in a mat or living in a temple where your whole life is full-time service. And sometimes the task you've been given seems impossible to overcome, right? I know that when we were in Bangalore, Gurudev had given us the instruction in 2004 in Jagannath Puri. I want you to, he told us earlier to set up a preaching center, which we did. And then he said a few months later, I want you to build a temple, either in the city or right next to the city. And this is 2004. And we were trying in so many ways, envisioning, working, distributing, but nobody would help us. Oh, well, when you get land, come back to us and we'll give you some money. We had no money to get land, right? And year after year, and Gurudev would sometimes send a message or speak directly, oh, when are you going to build this temple? And then he left and we hadn't built it. And I thought, oh my God, maybe the order's expired, right? And there were so many obstacles and difficulties. And I thought, I'm just going to give up. I'm just going to go and do some seva where it's appreciated, right? I'll go to the West. I'll go here and there. You know, nobody wants us here. But some little voice kept saying, but Gurudev wants this. Just stick it out. Just stick it out. And we stuck it out. And somehow or other, not by any power of our own, but by the divine mercy of the Lord, a temple was built. If you ask me now how it was done, I could not tell you in detail. All I know is we stuck it out. We stayed there. And even that little small demonstration of determination was rewarded. What was the reward? Gurudev's desire was fulfilled. Can we take credit? No, right? No. Krishna showed his mercy. Guru shows his mercy. We just kept trying. So every day in our seva from morning to night, Gurudev says sadhak should perform sadhan bhajan with the same unwavering determination and hard endeavor. Then Sri Krishna's heart will melt and he will be compelled to bestow his sublime devotional service upon them. Right. Indeed, when Krishna saw his mother's firm resolve, his heart melted. And his topmost potency, his mercy, the totality of all his powers combined, then manifested as his bhakta vatsaljata, his affection for his devotees. At that very moment, his Aishwarya Shakti, that potency of his supreme majesty, disappeared, and he allowed himself to be bound. Right? So we're not at that stage where Krishna becomes controlled by our efforts. But Guru, in the Madhurya Kandambini, Gurudev describes, especially this third shower, the power of Guru, who Guru is. And he says that Krishna takes his most powerful Shakti, he calls it his Karuna Shakti, and he places that into the heart of these special persons. And he sends them to this world. And he gives them full freedom to give this mercy anywhere and everywhere as they see fit, as they desire, right? And Gurudev's explained generally it's given in the traditional way. Here's the instruction, here's the process of bhakti, perform this sadhan, right? Adosadya tata sadhu sangata bhajana kriya, right? Step by step. Hear scripture, develop faith, associate with sadhus, develop faith in one particular sadhu, take initiation, perform bhajan and kriya activities of bhakti under their direction, right? Gradually, by your chanting, by your service, they'll remove anarthas. Then you become steady by your intelligence, by your determination with their help, and then ruchi may appear. And from then we gallop, right? But our effort, our part, has to be there. And we're being taught here that if even Mother Yashoda could not accomplish what she wanted immediately, Krishna is showing this extraordinary sweet pastime. And then he says, Mother Jashoda made an intense endeavor with unflinching resolve. Following her example, sadhaks should try to melt Sri Krishna's heart and compel him to engage them in loving service to him by practicing devotional service that is imbued with characteristics like, okay, now listen to this. See, now we're hearing the pastime. What are we extracting from it? And when we hear these characteristics, they're not fully developed in our heart, but the seeds of those characteristics have been planted by association with Sri Guru, by hearing from Sri Guru, and we're trying to water them, and by being conscious and praying that these characteristics grow, they'll help us. So, imbued with characteristics like sincere loving emotions, bhav. That's why we hear about Mother Yashoda. We hear about the gopis. Even in our state, we become moved and appreciate, oh my. And the descriptions of our gurus, their love is so special. If only I could chant and sing with that kind of love. That's a bona fide prayer. So in one sense, sadhan is the imitation of the sadhya, of the perfection, right? But in another sense, it's not inappropriate to aspire for that. And through our regulative activities, we try to imbue it with emotion, with bhav. And then great enthusiasm and anxiousness, utkanta, right? Utsaha nischaya daryat, right? Tat karma pavartanat. Rupa Goswami says, right? Utsaha nischaya daryat. Enthusiasm, confidence. Hey, if I just do this, my guru has promised I'll get the result. And also patience. Mother Jashoda, she wouldn't give up. She had patience. She kept doing it. Anxiousness, she was concerned. And a deep sense of closeness and relationship. Sambandha. That's the first stage of relationship with Sri Guru. And how do you develop that sense of closeness and relationship? By serving and praying to be successful in your service. This was one of the secrets, specialities of our Srila Prabhupada. Unlike Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj, who made a special effort to try to give some personal association to everybody, right? To awaken that sense of sambandha. Srila Prabhupada had so many disciples, so many worldwide missions, and so many responsibilities. He couldn't give us all personal interaction. But by engaging in service, we got this rare gift of knowing that, and Gurudeva said this also, there's two kinds of closeness and association, Vapu and Vani. Vapu means you're physically in proximity. Vani means you're associating by the instruction. And I heard Gurudev say, I consider Vani more important. And Srila Prabhupada imbued us with this Vani so that wherever we were, struggling, trying to do books in the heat of the Arizona desert in the summertime, 45 degrees in the parking lot, Celsius, 115, 120 Fahrenheit. People chasing us, cops, demons trying to steal our money and books, trying to attack us. All these things went on every day. But in those conditions, right, the prayers of Queen Kunti, let these difficulties come again and again, because by them we have only one recourse, to call out to you. And remembering you, we see you. And thus we no longer see birth and death. Closeness and relationship. It can begin even now, but you've got to do seva and call out to be connected. And then a feeling of possessiveness. My guru, mamata, my guru has given me this service. This is my service. Right? Yeah. Try to argue with a cook or a pujari sometimes about what's to be done or what not to be done. It's very difficult because it's their service, you know. Even if you're so-called temple president or a big GBC, you know, it's very difficult to stand up against a pujari or a cook, right? Because I have mamata, right? Mamata, possessiveness for the object of service and for the service itself. And then finally, intense affection for Krishna, for Guru Priti. This is Vishrambena Guru Seva. This is where the desire, the heartfelt desire, interests, taste of Sri Guru become your own. Right? This is what Gurudev always taught. This is what is in this pastime. So then Gurudev quotes Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur about what Chaitanya Maharaj has already said about the inconceivable nature. He's now going to repeat a great deal of what Sanatana Goswami said, but with other explanations to reinforce it for us. But this agatana shakti, how the impossible somehow becomes possible, how this little tiny waist can't be bound by all this rope, right? And so then he says something really beautiful. He talks about Krishna's unlimited majesty as that he exists in his own sarup, right? But he also is pervading all the universes and in each and every atom in his form of Paramatma, right? And yet, and he's also within each universe is Garbhodakshay Vishnu. He is Mahavishnu, the creator of all the universes. They're emanating from his pores. He's the source of the unlimited Brahman, which pervades everything, right? And yet, he has his own beautiful, medium-sized form, which is Akila Rasamrita Murti, the original form of condensed transcendent nectar in its totality. Gurudev says he is Raso Vaisaha. He is nectar, right? He can't be perceived by mundane sense perception. He's inconceivable. Yet Mother Jashoda regards him as her son. So he's showing us these two qualities which appear contradictory, but which are completely reconciled. But Krishna's highest form is in that Vrindavan as that sweet boy interacting with Mother Jashoda, but on the foundation that we have to grow from with our bhakti to understand him in all those other ways as well, so that we have confidence in our bhakti and that we have confidence in this process of anartha nivriti and the anarthas that come from Brahm, from illusion, right? Misconceiving what is the appropriate path, what is the ultimate goal, what is the nature of the jiva, what is the nature of God, right? This is overcome and we can practice bhakti appropriately. And then he encourages that Mother Jashoda's relationship is so natural. But don't mistake it to be an ordinary relationship from this world. We can take example in this world to give us a sense, because in this world, a mother's love is very powerful and quite selfless in many ways, but not like this, because there's no touch of fruit of act, no selfishness, no separate interest at all, right? My mother's love was very strong for me, right? First son. But when I quit college, she chased me out of the house throwing things at me. Because she had a desire that I come out in a certain way, right? It's always mixed. So then he also explains the difference, again, between Devaki and Vasudev, as Chaitanya Maharaj mentioned, right? And how, even though they are so extraordinary in all the annals of history, in all the ways that the Lord has appeared and has had different mothers and fathers, in different ways he's appeared, and Vasudeva and Devaki, up until Mother Jashoda and Nanda Maharaj, they perhaps the highest, even more than Dasarath and Mother of Lord Ram, what's her name?
Kushalia.
Koshalya. Yes, thank you. Oh man. But even they could not perform that kind of service and control him in the same way. He arranged by his Aishwarya Shakti that they take him to Vrindavan. Take me there, because I want to enjoy pastimes with them. So then he mentions that these secrets were given to us by Mahaprabhu. This is what he came to give, right? Anartita chiram chara koranaya vatirna kalo samapayatam unnata ujvala rasam svabhakti sriyam. This unnata ujvala ras and all the bhakti of Braj, this extraordinary Braj prem, this is what Mahaprabhu came to give. And he did it through the agency of his special servants, and especially Rupa Goswami, in Bhakti Samrita Sindhu, Ujjvala Nilamani, so many other books, Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Krishna's Kaviraj, right. And he mentioned so many personalities, Roy Ramananda, right? Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, his own Gurudev, Bhakti Bhyan Keshav Maharaj, and of course, our Srila Prabhupada. And then the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, personalities like Gaur Govinda Maharaj, who also unpacked and revealed so many of these secrets, right? Special qualified personalities. And then he concludes with, I'll speak this quickly, that the speciality of this ras, this rope that he was finally tied with, what was it composed of? It was composed of Vatsalya ras. He was bound by his mother's affection. And thus, when she left and went back into the house, what happened? His friends came, Dam, Sudam, Manumanga, all these friends, and they saw him crying there, and they began to talk and laugh about it. And then he begins to laugh, and they try to untie the rope. They can't do it, right? Balaram says, "What? Who's bound you?" He's so protective. I'll fix that person. And then when he's told, oh, it was mother that did it, he also becomes submissive and quiet. But it can't stop their play. Let's go out into the courtyard. Drag that stupid mortar with you. So they go out. Krishna's dragging the mortar. And then he remembers, because, Gurudev on the eve of Janmashtami, he would often speak about the numerous purposes that Krishna comes to fulfill when he comes, and many different demons that he fought and many pastimes that he performed are to fulfill the desire of his different devotees. And these two Arjun trees standing in the courtyard are the cursed sons of Kuvera, the demigod, Nala Kuvara and Manigriva, who had offended Narad Muni 15 million years before, bathing naked in the water with, heavenly damsels. And when Narad came before them, the damsels immediately dressed themselves and offered respects. But these two boys, they were so intoxicated and arrogant that they disregarded him and even insulted them. And then out of compassion, knowing that if they continued in that course of life, it would be disaster for them, he cursed them to be trees. But because of their remorse and because of his relationship with their father, he gave them the benediction that after some time, they would be delivered by Krishna himself. And when Krishna came between these two trees, he did not touch them directly, but the rope that was binding his waist attached to the mortar, that touched, and the trees, huge trees, fell down. The demigods emerged from that, offered prayers to Krishna, and then went to the spiritual world as Madhukant and Snigdhakant, which is revealed in Gopal Champa. And then Gurudev describes Nanda Maharaj coming out, hearing this terrible sound, sees Krishna, has such sanchari bhavs of fear and anxiety. Oh my God, what could have happened? Asked Krishna, what had happened? Who tied you? Mother tied me. And in his own prem, he becomes so angry at his own wife. He unties Krishna because he also has Vatsalya Bhav. He can untie the rope. and takes them away. He won't even talk to his wife, takes them away, bathes with them, feeds them cows, goes to the cow shed, feeds them jaggery from his pockets and milk from the cow's udders. And finally, this very beautiful, sweet scene, which is described again when, after the whole afternoon has passed, Rohini, feeling so much compassion for her dear, like her sister, like a sister to her, Yashoda, like a co-wife, um, because her husband is a cousin brother to Nanda Maharaj, tries to encourage Krishna to accept Mother Yashoda. And she tells Balaram, you please go and bring him over. Balaram goes, and usually Balaram's stronger than Krishna, but Krishna's still on such a peak. He pushes him, and Balaram falls. This is how Gurudev describes it. And then Rohini tries to speak to him and says, won't you come to me? No, I won't. Why? Because I called to you when I was being bound and you wouldn't come. Right? And she says, oh, but if you won't come and you won't come to your mother, you won't come to me, right? Who will feed you? My father will feed me. He will feed me milk and he'll give me sweets. Who will you play with? Won't accept Balaram. No, you won't, you won't be with your mother and father. I'll play with my brother Balaram, right? Who will you sleep with? Yeah. Oh, because usually little boy sleeps with his mother. I'll sleep with my father. Right? Oh, but your mother. And here in the book it says, what if your mother dies? Gurudev didn't say that in the lecture. What he did was he indicated it by a gesture. And if your mother, and a glance, and he raised his hand, and that's Rohini would have communicated. She wouldn't have said that directly, too harsh. But if your mother, and Krishna understanding that, begins to think, oh, and he runs to Mother Rohini and he cries, and Mother Rohini takes him in her arms, brings him over the Yashoda. They're all weeping, and they're very beautiful resolution. And then they finally all come together. They're all weeping in joy and prema. So many things happen that day. So many moods and feelings of bhavs, all these different moods are pouring through their hearts, all these ecstasies simultaneously. Then they go to take dinner together, right? And now Mother Yashoda is happily serving everybody, and everybody's conversing and laughing and joyous. And it results in this wonderful, wonderful resolution. So all the difficulties, all of this was just meant to enhance their prema in a special way. And Satyavrat Muni is praying, oh, I want that. I want to see that. And Gurudev is explaining it to us in such an amazing way, giving us so much to meditate on, right? So that's what we have to do, meditate and pray, right? That these bhavs, these moods, right, come into our heart, that enthusiasm, the attachment, the mamata, and then the love, the Vishrambena, Guru Seva come. So all glories to Srila Gurudev, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to this Dham Lila. Satyavat Muni, Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Maharaj. So much nectar from one simple verse. And I was laughing a lot earlier because that story you told about the pastor and the lifeboat and the helicopter. The rabbi at my family's old synagogue would tell that story all the time. It's like a running joke now in my family because of how many times we've heard that story. But in his version, there's two lifeboats and one helicopter. Anyhow, was there a question? No, I don't think so. I don't think we have a closing kirtan unless someone wants to jump on like last minute and announce. So You're talking, Maharaj, but you're muted.
Somebody asked, what's the name of Balaram's father? That's Vasudev. Yes.
Mm.
But Nanda is his real father. He feels Nanda's his father because Nanda raised him. We have to run to our Guru Puja now, and then I got to run and we got to cook lunch for all the devotees. So I want to thank Sri Dandi Maharaj very much for his inspirational talk. Sorry for going on a little long, we try to sometimes make it a little shorter and not put the devotees through the anxiety of having to listen to us drone on and on. But that happens. Anyway, thank you all very much. Thank you, Tarun, for nicely moderating, and Nalini Didi for singing so sweetly. Gaur Premanande, Haribo, Haribo.
Hari Bol. So I'm going to very quickly say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hari Bol. Thank you so much,
Hare
Maharaj.
Bol, Taranji.
You
Thank
took
you.
over to give everyone a more spiritual
No,
Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Before we end, I wanted to Didi has asked me to very quickly announce that on this Friday, we have a special program. It's going to start 1 hour earlier, so that's 11:30 a.m. UK time, but I think 3:30 p.m. No, sorry, 3:45 p.m. I think Indian time. Don't quote me on that. Actually, I'll let you know. But we have Sripad Bhaktivedanta Bon Maharaj speaking on the glories of Srila Vaman Goswami Maharaj and Srila Trivikram Goswami Maharaj on their disappearance day. So yes, 1 hour earlier. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhuba eva cha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Deva Piyai Keshavasya cha Krishna Bhakti Pada Devi Satyavadya Namo Namaha.